Hi, I'm Dan. This is at Midlife Crisis Motorcyclist and welcome to New Bike Day. Yes, I've just taken delivery of this rather fine looking Royal Enfield 650 Interceptor and I'm really quite excited because this is going to be my first real taste of a properly retro bike, something a bit different for me already. Now, in terms of the Interceptor and its Continental GT brother, they're kind of known quantities already, so probably no need for me to give you chapter and verse on that, but maybe as much for my own benefit as anybody else's, let's just have a quick look at what we've got. Heart of the bike is of course this really cool looking and very retro air-cooled 648cc parallel twin with this lovely big polished crankcase and all that kind of thing. It really looks the part, doesn't it? With just over 47 horsepower, it's right at the top of the A2 licence category, which is a good thing. Another good thing is the price. It starts at just £6,599, and for that you get the kind of forged wheels and a sort of blacked out engine and exhaust look, which looks pretty cool, I think. This one, however, has got the black pearl two-tone tank, spoked wheels, lashings of chrome, which I think suit the bike really nicely because, let's face it, if you're going to do retro, you may as well do it properly. What else have we got? Well, we've got single front disc, we've got no-name telescopic forks with, I don't know how much travel, but it doesn't look like a great deal going by that. They're non-adjustable. Got these rather tasty retro twin clocks there, no LCD, no TFT, nothing like that. We've got the proper kind of bench style seat, twin rear shocks with remote reservoirs. You can adjust them for preload but nothing else. In terms of electronics, you're limited to an electric starter, fuel injection and ABS, and that's pretty much your lot. But then we're going for the kind of proper retro authenticity here, so that all fits with the whole ethos of the bike. Now, what can I compare it to in my fairly limited riding experience thus far? Well, one bike that springs to mind is the Moto Morini Sei Mezzo 650 STR Roadster that I had last summer. Really nice bike, I enjoyed that a lot. Cost about the same as the Enfield. It's got a 650cc parallel twin as well. Quite a bit more power, 65 horsepower, but you can get it in A2 licensed form as well, so kind of comparable in that sense, and also perhaps in the kind of riding position and things like that. But it's a much more modern bike. It's got twin discs, upside down forks, monoshock rear end. It's a retro modern, really. It's not a proper classic like this. What else might you be considering? Well, the Moto Guzzi V7 range has a similar kind of authentically retro look, you know, the spoked wheels, the chrome and all that kind of stuff. Has of course got that classic longitudinal air-cooled V-twin, the shaft drive, you know, those Moto Guzzi signatures. It's a really cool looking bike, proper job, but it starts at over £8,000 and the price goes up pretty quickly after that, so it's a lot more expensive than the Enfield. Which brings us to the inevitable Triumph comparison. Yep, you knew it was coming, didn't you? Now, the obvious comparison for the 650 range of the Royal Enfields would be the 900s in Triumph's Modern Classics range, so Speed Twin, the smaller Bonnevilles, things like that. And the comparison is obvious because, you know, they're all twins and all that kind of thing, but the Triumphs, they're a slightly different deal, aren't they? Because they've got that kind of sneaky water cooling, they've got a few more kind of modern bits and bobs, the handling's a little bit more contemporary, all that kind of stuff. The other thing about the Triumphs is they're also really expensive compared to the Enfield. So even the cheapest 900 Modern Classic, the Speed Twin, that's £2,000 more than this, and the cheapest Bonneville is £3,000 more. So it looks pretty good for the Royal Enfield, doesn't it? Well, it did until Triumph launched its new 400s range, which I was riding just last week. Now, in theory, they compete with Royal Enfield's 350 singles range, of which there are quite a few, but they've only got 20 horsepower, which is half of what that Triumph 400 puts out. And the Triumph is only 7 horsepower down on this and weighs a lot less. So in terms of on-the-road performance, it's probably going to be a little bit quicker. Well, maybe quite a lot quicker going by the Speed 400 I was riding. And that bike only costs £4,995, which all of a sudden puts this bike in a slightly awkward position, doesn't it? Because, you know, what price retro authenticity? Well, in performance terms, it turns out to be 1,600 quid or thereabouts. Of course, there's only so much you can tell about a bike comparing numbers on a spec sheet. It's really all about the riding, so let's get to it. Right, so time for my first proper retro bike experience on the Interceptor 650. What can I tell you about it? Well, let's talk riding position first of all. So seat height on this is 805mm, so kind of middling. It's quite a short wheelbase on the bike, so quite a manageable size, or so it feels. I'm going to say it's a little bit short, smaller than I perhaps expected for what is, after all, a 650 is. It's not a big bike, is it? But bigger. Very upright and comfortable. The Interceptor has these upswept bars, whereas the Continental GT has the clip-ons instead. So it's a kind of an upright, neutral riding position, I guess a classic riding position in that sense. Excuse me sniffing. This is not quite Spanish sunshine I was riding the Triumph 400 in, I will say. So there may be a bit of sniffling going on as we make our way across the moors. So yeah, straight away it feels a pretty confidence-inspiring bike to ride. Nothing too intimidating. Manageable size around town and all that kind of thing. What about that engine? I mean, it certainly looks the part, doesn't it? Those air cooling fins and things like that. And it's got that kind of retro vibe, and I think I can't hear so well over the wind, but as it's warmed through, it's definitely got a more kind of throaty noise, a bit more an authentic kind of growl to it than the more modern bikes I've been riding so far. Would like maybe just a little bit more noise though, fair to say. And in terms of performance, well, like the Triumph Twins, it feels torquey, flexible. I'll tell you one thing that's a bit new for me. This is the first bike I've ever ridden without a gear indicator, so I don't actually know what gear I'm in. So I guess I just have to use the rev counter and the kind of feel through the seat of my pants to try and judge where I need to be, but that's okay because it's a flexible motor. It'll haul from whichever gear I'm in, I don't actually know. It's on this nice twisty road over the moors. I'm going to say the only bike of the Triumphs I've ridden so far was the Scrambler 900. Definitely doesn't have the kind of muscularity of that bike, but not dissimilar in character. And I think, given the rest of the bike setup, it's probably fine. One thing that is a bit weird, again I'm not used to, is the bench seat. It means there's nothing to catch your bum when you accelerate, so it kind of feels like you're going to slide off the back, which is a little bit disconcerting, but I'm sure I'll get used to it. And bear in mind, this is actually my first kind of proper go on the bike, so I'm still kind of in the process of getting used to it. It's cold, the roads are pretty greasy, so it's just a case of chilling out, getting a feel for it, and understanding what I've got under me. First off, it feels very approachable and easy to ride. Finding the gear lever might be a little bit oddly positioned and having to kind of hook my foot under it more than I'm used to. But I'm sure I'll dial into that as I put more miles in. But for these kind of rolling 60-mile-an-hour roads, it feels pretty pleasant, apart from the weather, but can't do anything about that. In terms of the kind of performance, my most recent comparison is that Triumph Speed 400 I was riding just the other week. And it's interesting that I only weighed 170 kilos. This bike weighs 217 kilos, I think, which is almost exactly the same as a Bonneville or a Speed Twin 900. So it's kind of sitting between the Triumphs in terms of its power to weight. I'm going to say that the Speed 400 definitely felt a bit more lively than this, which isn't surprising given that it's just a much smaller, lighter bike and not too far behind on power. But it's enough to be going on with, and probably, to be honest, as much as you want, given suspension feels on the basic side, shall we say. I don't think there's a huge amount of travel on the forks. The rear shocks are pretty basic, not a great deal of adjustments in them. I've not had a fiddle yet at all, but I'm going to say the ride doesn't feel particularly sophisticated, so it's not a bike you're going to be riding to the ragged edge. The tyres are decent Pirellis, so I was a little bit concerned about that. Not particularly big, so there's not a huge amount of rubber to lean on, but it is at least decent proper rubber, not some kind of unknown brand from wherever. So in terms of that, you know, you might think riding a retro bike you're going to have to ride it a little more cautiously than a modern bike, like perhaps the Triumphs or the Moto Morini that I've ridden already. And I think, yeah, probably you're going to dial it back a little bit from what you might do on those kind of bikes. But most of all, you ride a bike like this because it's about the character, isn't it? And about the soul. It's not about the ragged edge of performance and all that kind of thing. It's about, hopefully on a warmer day than this, just going out for a nice bimble along the lanes. I'll be interested to see what it's like on the commute as well, because I'll be doing a bit of that on it at some point. But in terms of how it all operates, there's a kind of, what you kind of expect really, is a kind of more mechanical authenticity about everything. There's no kind of, there's no gimmicks, there's no rider modes, nothing to kind of distract you from just the process of riding. And that really is, I'm going to sound a bit pretentious here, but that's kind of, to me, the essence of motorcycling, isn't it? It's all about feeling everything and being in tune with your machine and all that kind of thing, isn't it? So on first impressions, that sort of authenticity and lack of frills kind of seems to fit the Interceptor vibe. In terms of handling, we've got the kind of matched 18-inch wheels, which, with that upright riding position, all very comfortable. Kind of chill out, enjoy the view, just kind of enjoy your day, really. That's what it's about, isn't it? There's the bike's warming up and I'm warming up into it. I'm really enjoying that sound. I think an air-cooled engine, this is my first experience of one, to be fair, but I've heard plenty of them riding past. I think there's a kind of rawness about an air-cooled engine, isn't there, about the sound that you just don't get from more modern engines. That's all going to be part of the appeal of riding a bike like this, and certainly on first impressions I'm getting that. I know really you should ride with earplugs, shouldn't you, but this might be one of those bikes that maybe you might be tempted just to go au naturel, to enjoy the sound just that bit more. Certainly on the overrun, now the bike's warmed through a bit, I'm getting a nice kind of burble on the overrun and that kind of thing. So what else can I tell you? Brakes, well, not a day for kind of hanging it out to the ragged edge, so they feel up to the job. Back brake feels quite strong, to be fair, in proportion to the front brake. I've read some reviews where they've said that it does feel a little bit in the brakes, as I say, on a day like this, on wet slithery roads, cold tarmac, all that kind of thing. It's not something to be really testing to the limit, is it? But I think overall the sense I'm getting is of character and friendliness, and those are really quite appealing and positive takeaways, aren't they? So there we go. There are some first impressions of this Royal Enfield Interceptor. I'm hopefully going to be spending a decent bit of time on this bike so we can return to it when I've maybe got a little bit more to say about how it rides. And for now, I'd say the first impressions are all feeling pretty positive. So there we go, my first impressions of riding the Royal Enfield Interceptor. How was it? Well, as a first retro bike experience, I don't think I could really have asked for more in terms of the bike. It certainly looks the part, it sounds the part, it feels just, you know, it's kind of it puts a smile on your face just because it's a really fun experience. It's not particularly fast. I guess my frame of reference for this is both the Triumph 400s and the 900 Scrambler that I've ridden already. It's probably not as fast as either of those, to be honest, but then that's not really why you ride a retro bike, is it? It's about enjoying the experience, enjoying the vibes, enjoying the reflected cool of being on a machine that looks as smart as this. So in that respect, I think it totally delivers, and I've really, really enjoyed the experience. I'm looking forward to spending some more time on it. Right now, though, I think it's time to go and get a brew and warm up because I'm a little bit chilly. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, make sure you tick like, and if you've got any questions, hit me up in the comments. I'll join you in the conversation there. Subscribe, hit the bell, and you'll get notified of when I put some new stuff up on the channel. Plenty more to come, I hope. And in the meantime, thanks for watching at Midlife Crisis Motorcyclist. Bye for now, and ride safe.